another tutorial for Sonic Sorcery. I'm Stefan Key, your Sonic Sorcerer, and in this video I want to give you some basic insights and music theory hacks for ambient and meditation music production. So yeah, we start at the very basics. We're gonna have a look at ideas like pitch, tuning, scales, chords, and how that all comes together. And to start, we're gonna go to the instruments here. I'm gonna use the analog, which is basically an analog synthesizer. Don't be overwhelmed by all this. That is really not important. Basically, the oscillators are creating waveforms that you can choose here. You can see there's two oscillators. I turn this one off by just clicking here. And if I play this now, it sounds like this. Right, it has this waveform, but I want to change it to a sine wave, which sounds kind of more pleasant. Like this, right? So this is a more pure tone, and with this we're gonna start. So the first thing that we need to understand is pitch and tuning, right? So let's grab a tuner here. We go to the audio effects, right? And then I find the tuner and I can just drag it on here. And now you see if I play a note, it's showing me I'm playing the note C. We play another note, right? So now I'm playing. The C major scale. What that is, we will have a look in a second. Right now, just want you to understand that each tone or each note has its own pitch. And pitch basically just means cycles per second. So like how fast it is vibrating, right? So like lower tones are vibrating slower and higher tones are vibrating faster. And we can actually check that. Now it's just saying the note name. But if I click here on the send, then it's actually showing me the frequency in hertz, and the frequency 1 hertz is 1 cycle per second. So the frequency is actually showing me the vibration. So now I just don't only see the note, but I only see the vibration, right? So you can say this note or this tone has a pitch of 261.5 hertz. So 261.5 times it vibrates per second. The air molecules that create this tone that we then perceive when our ear vibrates and this fast in resonance, right? So this is the pitch of this tone. And then this other note, the G, has another pitch, right? It's like 392 hertz. And the thing is, the pitch depends on the tuning. And the tuning is basically the reference. And in this case, we decide the pitch of a certain note. In this case, in musical understanding, it's the note A. So now if we check the note A, right, you see it's 440 hertz. So, and this is the standard tuning in the Western music world, 440 hertz. So most of the music in the radio and everywhere is tuned to this tuning for many years now, 440 hertz. And there's other tunings like 432, 444 and stuff. We don't go into that in this video, but there will be a video because tuning is really important in terms of harmonic resonance, and there are other pitches and tunings that are more closely related to nature or that actually represent nature. But that's not, that would kind of blow the capacity of this video. Talking about capacity, in the background, I don't know if you hear the noise, but I have some music going from hemisync concentration. So those are beautiful frequencies that help your brain to be focused. So because I know it's kind of heady, and I find it helps me a lot to digest and understand things more. So whenever I'm learning, I'm listening to those frequencies. So they are in the background because I think they might help you to be more focused. All right, so now we have this reference pitch, right? So this basically means if we have a tuning of 440 hertz, that means that the note A is vibrating at 440 cycles per second, right? But the thing is, we can change the tuning, right? And if I wanted to change the tuning of this synthesizer, which is by default tuned to 440 Hertz, as I said, it's the industrial standard. But we can change the tuning. Here you see is a detune. And if I detune this slightly to minus 32, which means 32 cents down, and I play the note again, you see now A is vibrating, showing me on it's out of tune because the reference is 440, so it's listening to A should be at 440. But it's at 432, so no, that's off. But look what happens if I change the reference pitch. So now I tell the tuner, listen for A at 432, right? Oh, and it's perfect. So now we have actually tuned the analog synth to 432 Hertz. And yeah, I will just leave it at this tuning for now because of reasons that I will get into in next videos. But let's understand now what scales are and so on. So we just leave the synth as this instrument tuned to 432 Hertz for now. And now let's go in here and let's create a MIDI clip. Right click into the MIDI clip because we actually want to play notes. And as you can see here, you know, there's a C and there's a C and there's numbers. And that if I activate the headphone symbol, it's basically just indicating the octaves, right? So this is fairly low. You can only hear that with headphones. And then this is a bit higher. It's the same tone, but it's an octave. And that is the basic fundamental principle in music is the octave. And the octave is an interval, and an interval is a distance between two notes. And the most pleasant interval that there is in all music is the octave, because it's the most harmonic, because it's basically the same tone, just vibrating double the speed or half the speed, depending if you go the octave up or down. And let's see that on the thing again here, on the tuner, right? So this is C vibrating at 250 cycles per second. And now if I go up an octave, right, it's the same note, just an octave higher. So it's vibrating double the frequency. If you double 256, you end up with 512, more or less. Like now it gets out of tune because this is modeling an analog synthesizer, which was always phasing in and out of tune a little bit. So this is basically part of the algorithm, so that it's not like super clear right now, but you know, you get the idea, right? So this is the first interval, the octave, and that's the most harmonic interval. And so if we want to talk about scales, and the scale is basically a sequence of notes, we will have to have a look at the intervals first. Right, so now that we have an idea what a pitch and a tuning is, let's have a look at scales. And the musical scale is basically a sequence of notes played at certain intervals. So before we understand the scale, we have to look at what an interval is. And an interval is a distance between two notes. And this makes more sense if we actually have a look at the piano. So if we click a MIDI, create a MIDI clip here, right click and set MIDI clip, it will take us into the piano roll. And this is basically a flip piano from the horizontal view to the vertical. And it goes from top, the higher tones, down to the lower tones. And basically when we're talking about intervals, it's the distance between two notes, right? So from here to here, it's an interval. From here to here, it's another one. From here to here, it's another one. And you already may notice that certain intervals make you feel a certain way. And that's precisely how music works, by creating tension and release, harmony and suspension. and we're gonna have a look at all the possible intervals and give them names, and then later we also can see how we can create chords and scales with those intervals. So yeah, let's have a look at all the possible distances there are. So we're gonna go from the smallest interval to the biggest. So let's first change the grid here to half a note, or like a half note. So that means that for each bar we can have 2 notes. So now let's go with the most obvious, which would be the same distance, right? So we're not traveling, right? It's just like the same note. And this interval is called unison because nothing is happening. And then we create another bar, and now we actually go a step up. So now go from here to here. And this interval is a half step, right? So you can see, like, when we go from one note to the other on the piano, those are half steps or semitones. You know, semi means half. So from here to here is a half step. From here to here is a half step. But if we go from here to here, that will be a whole step, right? Because one half step and another half step, 2 half make 1 whole. So 2 half steps is 1 whole step, and each distance between from one key to the other is always a half step. So the first interval would be a half step interval, and this is called the minor second. And then we have the next interval, which would be from here. Now we go a whole tone up, so 2 semitones, C, D, and this will be the major second. And now go another one up, and now we can already hear something interesting, right? The feeling is changing. It's getting a bit more tense, or maybe a little bit more sad. And this is because it's a minor interval, but we're gonna have a look at minor and major in a second. So this is called the minor third, right? So it's like 1, 2, 3 semitones apart, 3 half steps from the root note. And in this case, the root is C, where we start the journey. Is called a minor third. Okay, so let's keep going. Now we have from C, 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones up. See? This one and this one feel completely different. So this is a minor third, this is a major third. And let's go up again. So now we go from C to F, which is a fourth. And then we go again from C to F sharp. This is kind of a weird interval. Maybe one of the most unpleasant ones. It's called a diminished fifth. And then watch what happens here. That's a fifth. It's a very strong interval. It's the perfect fifth. This interval together with this interval is one of the most pleasant intervals in terms of the most harmonious, the most stable, right? So this is the fifth. And then we go from here to here, which is a minor sixth, right? Because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps now. And then we have a major sixth. And then we continue. Minor 7. Major 7. And now, here to here. Finally, we have concluded our journey. And we arrived at the same note, but an octave higher. And the octave It's a cosmic principle, basically. I mean, in general, music is not something that we have discovered. It's just the physics and the magic of the universe at work. And it's a phenomena of ratios and numbers that create all that is in the universe, and we can make it audible, or we can work, with vibrations of strings and stuff in order to make it feel in our bodies. And this is how instruments are using those principles that we didn't discover, but they exist. It's the language of the universe. And the strongest interval, the most harmonious, is the octave, right? And now let's have a look at the scale. So now that you know all the intervals, right, keep that in mind. Now we're going to have a look at the scale. So now I'm going to create another MIDI clip. And we're going to create the C major scale. So that means major scale means that we only use the white notes starting on C. So we cannot use this one, but we can use this one. So the D, this one not, this one yes, E. Oh, then there's another one. F, right? And then G. And then we can use A, and then B, and then C. Right? So you can see this has 8 tones, right? From here to here is the octave. And then let's have a look at the intervals that shape these scales. So right from here to here, we have the major second. Oops, sorry. Right, then here we have the major third, and we have the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, major sixth, major seventh, and the octave. So you see a pattern here. The thing is, we have a whole step, right, from here to here. And we have another whole step from here to here. And then we have a half step. Right, from 3 to 4 is the half step. And that's really important for the major scale. And then we have another whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and then another half step here. So there's only whole steps except from 3 to 4 and from 7 to 8. Right? And this is, so to speak, the code of the major scale. So knowing this, you can create any scale out of these intervals. So if I would like select them all and go up, right now, right, I have the D major scale. So I shifted the whole scale from C to D because the intervals are still the same. The notes are changing, but the distance between the notes stays the same. Right? And now, so if you have this code, you can create basically any scale. Right? So let's go back. And let's actually create like a template for us now. So we have the scales. So one way to do that is we could click fold. Right? And now it's showing us only the notes that are in the scale. And if I move them over, I move them over here. And I mean, this might be the most obvious example because it is only the white notes, right? And I can even like select them all, Command A, and put them out. So now there's no notes playing, but I see them now, and now I know I can play. So if I wanted to create a melody, I would make sure that it's always in this scale, right? So that is one way how you can learn the scales if you want to, and how you can create melodies. And this goes for any scale, as I said. So let's say like this would be the C major scale. And then I duplicate that, and let's click unfold for now so that I can have all the notes again. Now I go up 2 semitones. And now I have the D major scale, right? If I fold it now, you see, all of a sudden there's black notes in there. And now I have the D major scale, so I could, you know, write D major and so on. All right, so this is how the major scale works, but then there's also a minor scale. So let's go back really quick to the major scale, unfold that, and let's have a look at the semitones again. Right, so there's a whole tone, the whole tone, and then there's a half tone, or like a half step. So from 3 to 4 are the half steps, and then from 7 to 8, the rest is whole steps. And then the other thing is there's also a minor scale. And the easiest way to find the code for a minor scale is to go to A, and from A, if we play only the white notes, it is going to be a minor scale, the A minor scale. So create another clip here, and let's go to A. So let's start maybe at A2, right? So now if we take only the white notes, so now you can see all of a sudden the intervals change, right? So this is still a whole step, but then here we have the half step already, right? So it's from 2 to 3, and in the major scale it was from 3 to 4, so now it's from 2 to 3, and then we have a whole step, another whole step, and then a half step again from 5 to 6. Right? So, and the major scale is from 2 to 3 and from 5 to 6. They are the half steps. And then it's another whole step. And this whole scale has a totally different feel. Like, more melancholic, it's more dark, it's more sentimental, right? So that's the whole idea. Like major is more bright and uplifting. Remember, if I go play the C major scale, as compared to it's a bit darker, right? And the main reason why that is because it's the interval here. This is the minor third interval, and whereas this is the major third interval, right? So this makes it major, happy, bright, right? And this would be the minor interval. And then you feel the sadness coming in. So the third is the determining factor if the scale is major or minor. Right? This is major, sorry. The major third, 4 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4. And minor. Alright, so now we have an idea how major and minor works, and what a scale is, and you can create your scales. So now let's actually hop on to what chords are. And for this, let's go back to C major, to the scale that we made, So basically, a chord is at least two notes played together. And the most common form of a chord is the triad, right? So if you play three notes together in certain intervals, they are called triads. And we can start here in the C major, right? So we are only allowed to use the white notes, remember? So let's make a chord here, put it to half a bar again. So from here and then here, right? So we can only use the white notes. And if we want to create a chord, it is based on the root note, which in this case is C because we're in C major. So this is our home base. And then we have the third, which in this case it's a major third because it's a major scale. And then we have the fifth, right? So a triad is made up of root, third, fifth. So now we have a C major chord. All right, so now we know how to make a triad, in this case the C major triad. Another way to look at it, like if we fold it again, would be, you see, for a triad, you have to use every other note in the scale, right? So one note, skip this one, take this one. Then skip this one, take this one. So every other note basically is making a triad. And now we can see, okay, so if this is the C major, the first chord in the C major scale, the next tone would be D. So now we go select them all and go up. And then we notice something, right? There is a black note in the scale. And this is by no means racist, but black notes are not allowed in the C major scale. And this has to do with the intervals. And we saw that in C major, we can only use the white keys, right? So also if we look at the pattern again, every other note, right? So here this not, and then this one. So we have to take this down. So if you have like C, D, not the E, but the F, right? So every other note. So we start from D, this one, not, but this one. And then we have A, which again is a white note. And then we have a minor chord. Huh. In a major scale and we're having a minor chord, right? Might think that if we are in a major scale, we only have major chords, only chords that sound happy and bright, but all of a sudden, there's this sad chord. It's interesting. Yeah, but that's just the way it goes. So every scale has minor and major chords, no matter if it's a minor or major scale. And this is also just the nature of the intervals, right? So let's go on. So after the D minor chord, which is the second chord, we go to E. And what happens if we go to E, right? So now you see, another minor chord. So we have major, minor, minor. Let's keep going. So after E minor, the next note will be F. Let's check. Okay, so every other note, right? And no black notes. So this one has to go up. So it's F, A, C. Here's another major chord. So major, minor, minor, major. Let's keep going. So checking, no white, only white notes, no black keys. All right, so this is correct. So now another major. So major, minor, minor, major, major. Guess what's coming next? We go to A. Oh, again, a black note, not allowed. So we have to go one down. Another minor chord. And then we're almost there. Go to B. Then we see, there's a black note. That's not allowed. So we have to go see if we go every other note, right? So we have like B and then C naught and then D. That's okay. And then E naught, but then F, right? So we have to take that down. And that's kind of a weird chord. It's called a diminished chord. So it's like B diminished. It's not really major nor minor. And we don't use it a lot in music, so don't worry so much about it unless you want to create some really tense moments or like a really kind of dissonant feeling. And yeah, and then we go up again after B, go to the octave, and then we have to make sure that it's like here, C, E, G again, and then we have our major chord again, right? So now the sequence is of a major scale. It's like major chord, minor chord, minor chord, major chord, major chord, minor chord, diminished, and major, like the octave. Okay, so now we have all the chords in the major scale, and as I said, you can shift them up. So the same thing would go for the D major. If I select them all and go up, right? So now we have the D. Major chord, minor chord, minor chord, major chord, major chord, minor chord, diminished, major chord. So yeah, basically you can create all the chord progressions now because you have access to the code of how to create major scale chords. If that makes sense. All right, so let's really quick make a summary and then we go on to the hacks because now you almost understand everything and you ask yourself, okay, but how can I use this in my music production? And what does this have to do with ambient and meditation music? And for that, we will have to have a look at chord extensions because this is a basic chord, this is a triad. But if we keep adding notes, if we just keep adding intervals, then we are creating extended chords, and this is what is mainly used in meditation and ambient music for its feel and vibe. But yeah, let's summarize again. So a scale is a sequence of notes based on certain intervals. A major scale has their intervals. If we fold it again, no, now we have the black notes in there because we are at D. We need to go back to C. Doesn't make sense otherwise. Right, so the major scale, we have the semitones 3 to 4 and 7 to 8. Other intervals are whole steps. Here's the half step. And here's the half step. And this makes the major scales, whereas in the minor scale, we had it on 2, 3, and 5, 6. And that's the only difference. It's the same notes, but there's different intervals. Okay, I think at this point, I already, maybe for some of you, challenged your brain a lot, and you might wondering like, oh man, this is also complicated. And I don't know I will ever get this. And it took me also really a while to understand it, but I have good news. You don't need to worry about any of this. I just wanted to give you like the basic building blocks, you know, to understand how it works if you would want to make it on your own. But the cool thing is you don't have to. There's a lot of cool hacks and tools within Ableton that allow you to skip the steps of learning all of this, right? So let's get back in here. And the first thing that I want to show you is a MIDI effect, which is called Chord. And what it's doing is it is adding notes on top of the notes that you are playing, and can add up to 6 notes on top of the note that you are playing. On top of the root note, basically, right? So right now, I'm playing a C. Nothing is happening. And let's say we don't touch this right now because this is the root note. But then we could have like the second note, and ST stands for semitones. And remember, like, we have semitone intervals. And remember that a chord was made up of a root, a third, and a fifth, right? The triad. So if we want to create a triad, we can have either like a major chord with a major third and the fifth. And the fifth is 7 semitones apart from the root note. So now, right, I have a C major chord. So all I'm doing is pressing one note on the keyboard, but it's playing, excuse me, it's playing the whole chord. And if I change this to 3, it's playing a minor chord. Right, so super easy. I can play major or minor chords. And that's another chord. So this is a triad, right? It's like the root note, which I'm playing, and then it's adding on top the third and the fifth. And we could record that just to see how it looks. Right? And there you see just the note C. And this is because this one is going to record before the effect is applied. But if I have a second MIDI channel here and I say MIDI from the analog channel, so now this one is receiving the MIDI and then it's going through the effect. So now it's putting out the whole chord. So watch this. If I play this clip and record it here. Right, so now it's recording actually the C major chord that is formed from this note. So this is giving you an illustration of what is happening when this chord is playing by only being triggered by this note, and then this chord exists. And now if I change the effect, right, now I change the interval to a minor third and record again, just playing the C here, it creates a minor chord. See? Now we have the black note in here, and now we have a minor third interval creating a minor chord. So that's the first thing. Basically allowing you to play chords. And then if you want to go even more crazy, make the chord even more beautiful, you can have a 4th degree. And if I go, for instance, 12 semitones is a whole octave. So now I'm adding a C on top. And this sounds like that. C minor, C major, and again, if I record this now, see, there are 4 notes all of a sudden. There is also the octave on top. So we have the major triad that we had, the major chord, and now another octave on top. And this makes it richer, right? So this is just adding, makes the chord more full. And we could also go the negative direction. So instead of going up, we could go an octave down, which basically is adding a bass note. And let's record that. Right? So now you see the C is not on top, but on the bottom. You know, it really depends on where you want to go with it. And now let's make it even more interesting. Let's add another interval on top, which would be a 7th if we go to the 9 semitones, right? Would be something like this, right? And now it gets a little bit more dreamy. Let's record this. So now if we count, right, so now we have those tones, C, E, G. Oh yeah, there's no tone on here, so I can just create maybe put on another instrument here so that we can hear something, and maybe I just go for classical piano now. Instrument rack, grand piano. What you might notice is that the piano is a bit out of tune now because it is tuned to 440 and not to 432 like the one that we have here. So we might have to turn it back to 440 because I don't know how to tune this piano in here. Right, so now we have this chord, and if we count the intervals, so that's the fifth, right? And then we have the minor 6 and the major 6. So this is a major 6 chord. And then if we go up another one, sorry. So now if we record this chord again, it's a minor 7th chord. Right? And then we can have another one go up and make a major 7th chord. Ah, right, and this already sounds more like meditation music. So now if I set this to in, which means it receives the notes, and I can now play all the 7th chords. So again, I'm just pressing notes, single notes on the keyboard, but it's set to this major 7th chord. But what it's doing now is it's playing only major chords. And we saw before that each scale has major and minor chords, and this is because of the intervals, like the distance between the notes, that has always to be the same, but sometimes there's black notes involved and sometimes white notes. So another cool effect now, instead of memorizing, like all the notes now that are on the scale, because some need to be flatter and some sharper and stuff, there's another cool MIDI effect, and this is the scale effect. And this basically shifts the wrong notes that you play into the right place. So it's adjusting it based on the codes. So for instance, if we want to go to major, I can put in C major, and now if I play a note, it will be adjusted. So right, we have the C major 7, and we have a D minor 7, remember, because major and minor was like it was the succession of the chords was major, minor, minor, major, and then another major, diminished, and major again. Right, and this might sound like Mario Kart or something, and this is just it's also pretty jazzy. But yeah, those kind of chords work really well. Or let's say we make so then that would be the octave again. But if we go higher than the octave, so now let's say we go a minor ninth. Sounds weird, so let's try a major ninth. Also really dreamy. Yeah, and basically you can play around with that and experiment and see what intervals you can come up with. But yeah, if you change the sound, let's say we go an octave down, you know, and then I add some reverb to it. Maybe make it even brighter. And add an octave on top as well, so make the chord like super big. Doesn't sound much like meditation music at the moment, right? But now. And now if we change the instrument to something even more dreamy. So, I don't know what we have here. Maybe I go to one of my favorites here and what we could use. Alright, let's use the slow that I was advertising earlier for the Black Friday sale. So, oh, turn this off and right now you hear like this shimmering on top. And the piano down a little bit. So now we have the piano playing the chord, and then we have the analog playing the root note. Right, and now you can hear already how it's getting more into the ambient meditation music vibe. Right, so if you wanted to, you could group these together, like you can select them both with Shift, group, and then you can create a preset and save it actually. So you click on this little symbol here, which is like a smart disk or like a floppy disk, and you can name this meditation chords. Right, and this time now you can always just drag it and it will be there. And let's actually call them major, right? So this is meditation chords major. And now let's make a minor as well. So I go here, I change the third. And here I have to change from C major to C minor so that we're using the minor code. And now we have created also a minor chord preset for meditation chords in minor. So, right, so now we are in a totally different vibe. It's in minor. And then we can save this as meditation chords minor. maybe let's switch this piano sound also for something more ambient, so that you really get the feel for it. Maybe, I don't know. All right, so let's see if we can find a nice pad in Ableton. So I go to instruments. I was looking for pads, and I think this one is pretty nice. Here, the Eno Chord Pad. I think that's a reference to Brian Eno, one of the most amazing ambient musicians on the planet. And yeah, let's see how that sounds. Yeah, that's beautiful. So let's actually put it on this one here, so we have the chords as well. Oh, here we go. That's nice. More reverb, put more echo, wash it out really hard. And see, he's already using the chord thing here, so we have to turn that off actually. Let's get it under the hood. I was wondering, that was sounding kind of weird. See, it's the chord thing here. We have to turn that off. How do we turn it off? Like that? Yeah, I think now it's off. If it's down here, it's off. Okay, it's a wavetable. It's interesting. If you look in here, it's called Airport Meditation Space. I think that's a reference to Brian Eno and his album, which is awesome music for airports. So yeah, I think that's the perfect ambient pad here. Congrats Ableton for creating this. So now we're in D minor actually. Because you can change the root note, right? Because just because it says C minor doesn't mean that we have to stay in C minor. If we change the root note, we stay in the minor scale, but we can change the root note. So now we are in E minor, for instance. Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so let's record a little chord progression here. Okay, let's just do it like that. I don't have to play it. I just can put in the notes. So starting out here, maybe let's make it 16 bars long. So I go to 4 bars. Maybe let's do 4 bars each. We have this one, and then let's find the next one. Yeah, that's nice. And then yeah, maybe just like that. Let's see how that sounds. with the filter here. Okay, cool. So now we have that chord progression, and to finish off, I just wanted to show you like another opportunity how you can make use of the scale effect, because you know now that it's like in E minor, but like maybe you don't know all the notes in E minor because there's sharps and flats everywhere, and it's really hard to memorize all that. But the good thing is you don't have to when you use the scale effect. So again, let's use the C minor here, scale effect, turn it to E minor, and let's find another cool instrument here. Maybe let's look for a bell or something. I don't know. Maybe that. No idea how that sounds. Oh yeah, it sounds grotty. No bueno. Man, they're really not sounding so good. Yeah, let's use this one, Talk Bells. Okay, so now we can play the chord progression. Go an octave higher. So basically I can play now any note on the keyboard. And it will always be in the key of E minor. Right, so now you don't have to worry about hitting the wrong note. It's never gonna happen. You will always hit the right note if you combine the scale effect with this chord scale effect. Okay, so that's it for this video. Like, there's a lot more that we can cover, but for now, let's just keep it like that. It's pretty long already. I hope you got some inspiration, and you're not afraid of music theory so much anymore, because yeah, you don't need to worry so much about understanding it. It's more like knowing where to find the right tools, and I hope I showed you some of them. All right, thanks for watching, and keep creating magic. See you in the next video.